The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
With the Idaho Department of Correction and to provide correct.
Well, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. It is February 14, 2025. You're going to have a live shot here of the House in session down in Boise. I am up in the north. It's 10:33 up here, 11:33 in the south. Welcome, everybody. It's Friday. Again, happy Valentine's Day to all you lovely, lovely people out there. We are going to go through a bunch of fun stuff today. We're going to get you up to speed on a bunch of random bills that are going through that still affect your life. But we like to do this every once in a while. We did this last session where we just kind of like would go through a bunch of bills that that potentially could affect your daily life, even if they don't seem as monumental as some of the things that we're always out there, causing controversy with. But we will get into a bunch of things today, and I think it's going to be a pretty good show. Brian Allman is waiting in the wings as well, so we'll bring him in here as well. And then I think possibly we might have Senator Brandon Shippey. We've invited him on the show. The Senate did adjourn, so hopefully he'll, if he doesn't have any meetings afterwards, he'll be able to join us to talk through HJR1, the constitutional amendment that would enshrine homeschooling freedom in our Idaho Constitution. So, all right, let's get going here. Like we just said, the Senate just adjourned. They were debating bills that are on the third reading calendar. So I want to show you what the third reading calendar looked like this morning. We've highlighted two bills that we were going to really focus on. But the bill that they got to this morning was Senate Bill 1025, and that was the Empowering Parents Program expansion, $20 million more to go into the Empowering Parents Program, which offers grants to families who educate their children outside of the public school system to go, basically, like, you get money and you get to go buy certain things in order to help with your education. There's an entire list of things you can and can't buy. and that was mentioned this morning on the floor, but that bill died 6-28, I think it was that the tally? It was a pretty it was a pretty big knockdown of that bill. But I do want to note here, down at the bottom, look at that, H32. That's the mask mandate bill. It is officially on the third reading calendar, which means it's going to be given a vote soon. So we'll watch that. It'll obviously probably happen next week because none of the rest of these bills we still need to get through as well. So that's what the third reading calendar looks like. And we'll cover some more on this empowering parents thing a little bit later with Allman when he gets on here. But speaking of the mask mandate bill, once again, why is this important? Why are we so focused on masks? It's been 5 years since COVID and such. Well, folks, news broke just recently over in a neighboring state in Washington. It's check out this article. Do we have that ready? Check out this article. A Washington election observer has been charged with a felony over a mask policy dispute. So he was there to observe an election in the office, and the office manager, the election manager, whatever, said that they had to wear a mask. And if you don't have a mask, we'll provide one for you. And he was just like, I'm not going to be wearing a mask. It's just not going to happen. So he's been charged with a felony for not wanting to wear a mask to observe elections. And that's happening. Now, again, I know that's over in Washington, but all it takes is a few more of those yahoos running the show over in Idaho, and then you got this going on. So that's why these bills are so important, folks. That's why H32 is so important. Okay, we need to get this on the books and make it harder to get rid of them. And when they're in statute, it really, really, really helps. So that's the wackiness that's going on next door, and we're going to keep tabs on that. All right, I want to do a quick rundown. It's Friday. A bunch of bills got printed this week. And we have a few here we want to highlight. So if producers are ready, this is going to be kind of rapid fire here. Get your pencils ready, folks. Get your pencils ready. Bookmark the time that we're about to start this, because if you hear a bill that you're like, that's important to me, we're not going to spend too much time on all this stuff. But I just want to fly through some of the most recent bills that have been printed that we haven't covered. I haven't really seen covered out there. But get ready. Here we go. So the first bill, and again, I'm not saying these are all important. I'm just saying that these are just interesting bills that are out there. This is what everybody's working on, right? House Bill 204 got printed this week. This would create two new license plates. This one is a world famous potatoes. So they want to create a black license plate with white letters that say world famous potatoes. There's also a second license plate that is white with teal letters that you could have among the, I think there's like 455 styles of license plates in Idaho. So that's one of them. There's another bill that came in this morning about an appeal to heaven license plate. So license plates are a big deal here. House Bill 205. This is interesting here. This is it has to deal with speed limits when you're passing on the highway. So apparently, this bill, this would provide for vehicles to exceed the speed limit while passing in a, quote, passing lane. Current law states that you can exceed the speed limit on a 2-lane road, but excludes passing lanes. So this would add passing lanes that you could exceed the speed limit if you're going to pass. Makes sense that should be allowed in a passing lane. The dotted lane that you have to cross over. So there you go. That wasn't in the statute. You could have been, I guess, ticketed for doing such, and now they want to fix it. So good for you, Charlie Shepard, Representative Shepard. 209. Check out 209 here. Let me bring it up so it's easier for me to read over here. 209. This deals with libraries. Current Idaho law forces cities that run their own libraries to hire and fire the city's library director through a library commission. This legislation provides such cities with the option of making this a personnel decision directly through the city council itself. So the city council could fire the director or hire the director, or they could just leave it up to the commission, the library board, whatever they have there. But right now, current law says that you have to allow the library commission to fire and hire the director. So I mean, up to you. That's something that sounds important to you. That's House Bill 209. House Bill 219. This is interesting here. And I don't know the ins and outs of all of this, but again, if this sounds something important to you, this legislation would require health insurance companies to apply toward your copay or your deductible or your out-of-pocket maximum payments, which are already made by a third party on your behalf. So that kind of makes sense on its surface, you know. If you have a copay and it's a certain amount but it's being covered by a third party, a portion of it, that you only have to make up the difference. You don't have to pay the full thing. So again, these are just the statement of purpose. The devil's in the details, as they say. But if that sounds interesting to you, that's 219. 221. Representative Hill, the guy he's on the wall. He's the one on the wall when it comes to making sure that our foreign adversaries are not taking advantage of us here in Idaho. So he brings forward this bill, which would expand current code so that foreign governments are prohibited from purchasing any Idaho forest land. In addition to agricultural land and water rights and mining claims, any foreign adversary is also under the same prohibitions. But this legislation, the foreign adversary that owns any of these agricultural lands must sell it within 180 days of notice. And if they don't sell, they will be sold by judicial foreclosure. So Ted Hill, man, he's out there just trying to get our foreign adversaries to not own anything within Idaho. So again, if that's something that's passionate for you, that's 221. 222. Let's go to 222. We're almost done, folks, but it's fun. It's fun to listen to these things. 222 adds transparency. All right, this is about being more transparent. This makes makes it so that administrative rules and policies on all these various state departments, they need to publish their current rules and policies online so that it's easy for us to find and see. Because a lot of these times they're hidden. They're hidden in statutes. They're hidden in big volumes of books that you kind of have to go through. This would make it so that their policies are clear and transparent and right online, easy for you to see. So that sounds like a pretty good one here. 228. Again, that one was 222. This one coming up here, 228, is public meetings. This is interesting. I don't know how far this one's going to get. I went in and read this bill. Representative Chris Bruce, great guy. This legislation acknowledges that the citizens they have the right to make timed public comments to a governing body. So this would open up, apparently open up more so the ability for the public to address their city councils or any public board, that you may go to. And so I read this legislation, and it says you got to accept, in-person comment, you got to accept electronic, Zoom or phone calls, you have to allow enough time. And if the system goes down, like if YouTube shuts down, if you're broadcasting on YouTube and people can't watch, you got to stop your meeting. You can't just continue onward. So I think this one's going to have a lot of questions for people. I'm already having questions myself about how you manage this. But in the spirit of First Amendment and free speech and holding everybody accountable, I like where this is headed. So we'll see how long it can go. 229. This is the bill I'm talking about here. I think this is a great bill. This deals with cell phones and devices of that nature in our public schools. And so this legislation would require that each school district adopt a policy on electronic devices in K through 12. And they need to adopt a policy by August 1st. This one I'm going to go into the text a little bit because it seems like it's a very reasonable bill. It just simply states that wireless communication devices, and then it defines all those devices, and then it says the district shall bring up a policy and have it approved by the board and have it available and put it out there. But at the very end part here, line 22, it says, at a minimum, such policies shall prohibit the use of wireless electronic communication devices in classrooms during periods of academic instruction. So I think this is going to have a bit of contention here with that language, especially when a wireless electronic communication device could also be a computer that's in the classroom. So I think they're going to have to probably figure out what is going on here. So, but these are the kinds of bills and the kinds of language that gets debated that we get in the weeds on. So it'll be very fascinating to see. But I like the spirit of all this stuff. Okay, that brings us to the bill that came out yesterday. It's already made headlines in some papers across the state. This is House Bill 230. House Bill 230. There was a similar bill like this came up maybe actually 2 years ago now, that wanted to address the whole idea of these public sexual exhibitions that are happening in public areas, like at a park for an event, where there potentially could be children around. And so Blaine Conzatti, our good friend Blaine Conzatti, the president of the Idaho Family Policy Center, has helped draft legislation and actually presented it in committee yesterday. And what we want to do is it's 8 minutes long. We want to play the entire hearing for you for this bill. And this was just a print hearing. So I imagine that the full hearing with public comment is going to be quite active. But I found Blaine Conzatti's presentation to be spot on in terms of identifying and answering the very detailed legal questions. They've done a ton of research on the background of this bill and the need for this bill, which meant that they included 3 pages of legislative findings where they cite case law, they go through definitions, and they make it really clear about what it is they're trying to prevent kids from being exposed to for their protection. And also to make this bill clear that it's not targeting one specific type of sexualized exhibition. It's covering all of it, because all of it can be detrimental to children. So we're going to play the full. It's only 8 minutes for this full print hearing, but we're going to play it in full because of the questions and answers that go back and forth, and then we'll take a break after that and be back. So sit back and watch this presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Blaine Conzatti. I serve as president of Idaho Family Policy Center. RS 32021C1 deals with indecent sexual exhibitions in public or other places where children might be present. It simply creates a duty of care for facilities, for hosts and organizers of indecent sexual exhibitions to take reasonable steps to restrict children's access to indecent sexual exhibitions. Please note, I think this is important, the RS does not ban sexual exhibitions outright. Instead, it functions as a constitutionally permissible time, place, and manner regulation, protecting children while still allowing adults to attend indecent sexual exhibitions if they choose. The Supreme Court has regularly upheld time, place, and manner regulations if they're content neutral and if they do not limit alternative avenues of communication. In this case, obviously, we're still allowing these performances to take place in private, or if the organizers simply check IDs at the door. That's all we're asking, just reasonable steps like checking IDs at the door. I also want to note really quickly what types of performances we're talking about. So what types of performances fall under the scope of this proposed legislation. The indecency standard that we're using here mirrors the same standard that the FCC has used for decades now to regulate daytime television broadcasts. So if it's appropriate for daytime television broadcasts, then it's appropriate for a live performance in public where children might be present. It's as simple as that. We're not talking about gender-bending performances in Shakespearean theater. right? Those are regularly seen on TV. We're not talking about cheerleading performances. We're not talking about the movie Mrs. Doubtfire that was really popular when I was a kid. All these things are regularly seen on daytime television broadcasts, and the federal government and local communities have allowed that. It's also important to note just really quickly that this proposed legislation would not target any specific type of sexual exhibition. It applies equally to all indecent sexual exhibitions, whether drag shows, erotic dancing, burlesque performances, strip teases, etc. So all we're saying, again, shouldn't take place in a public park or other place where kids are present. And the RS is narrowly tailored to promote the state of Idaho's interest in protecting kids from those indecent sexual exhibitions. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that you guys introduce this RS, and I'm happy to stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Canzotti. Are there questions for Mr. Canzotti? Representative Mickelson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Canzotti. I guess I have a question. When I read on the first and second, third pages, it seems like it's all a bunch of background, and it's really not about what we're actually doing. I don't think we actually get to what you're trying to accomplish until I think you get to page 3, line about 19. So I guess my question is, why are we putting court cases into Idaho code, referring to them, versus just having statute that lines out what is acceptable and what is not?
Mr. Canzotti.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Representative Mickelson, thank you for asking the question. So it's common in legislative findings to provide a legal rationale for the legislation and to indicate what the legislature's intent is in passing the legislation. So what we're doing in those legislative findings is we're explaining the legal basis for this proposed legislation and explaining why it's defensible under current case law.
Representative Shubin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gonzatti, I'm all for protecting children. I recognize that children shouldn't be exposed to sexual explicit material. They can't process it, it's not good for them, etc. But what I see in the defense section for the civil action, I don't see...
Representative, could you give us a page number and maybe a line number so we can follow along with you?
Page 4,
okay.
Starting line 3 through, all the way down. I don't see any defense for the host to just announce that there might be sexually explicit material to protect themselves. I'm just thinking of the example of, let's say there's an improv comedy show and you can't control what the people who show up will do, and then you're, liable.
Mr. Canzotti.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Representative Shubin. So if you take a look at paragraph E, subparagraph 1. So we do have an affirmative defense if the host is able to produce a legally enforceable contract signed by the event organizers, performers, or authorized agent working on behalf of the event organizers or performers when such contract stipulates that the performers at the event shall not engage in an exhibition, show, or performance that violates the requirements of subsection 1. So if the host, if the facilities are able to produce a contract that prevents the performers from engaging in indecent sexual conduct, then that would be an affirmative defense that excuses their liability. Even if they don't have that contract, the plaintiff would still bear the burden of proving that the host failed to take reasonable steps, which is a high bar to reach. So, we're just utilizing the normal principles from tort law here. The host, all the normal principles of tort law would still apply.
Follow up?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wouldn't it be more simple to just have the host announce that there might be explicit material so the parents don't take the children or the adult doesn't bring in the minor, and that way you just don't expose the child altogether? Isn't that more simple and easy and less burdensome?
Mr. Canzotti.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Representative Shubin, we don't believe that children should ever be exposed to indecent content or behavior. And so we have a bunch of affirmative defenses in here to ensure that, institutions or entities are not being held liable for actions that they are not responsible for. All we're asking is that they take reasonable steps to prevent children's access. Reasonable does not mean burdensome, and there's good case law on this as well that we can get into, I would imagine, during the full committee hearing if the chairman wants. But all we're asking is that these entities take reasonable steps to restrict children's access.
Follow-up? Okay, you're good. Representative Skog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As to Representative Shubin's question about affirmative defense, that doesn't limit the defenses that a defendant can bring up. That just mentions those are an affirmative defense. So they could bring up defenses. I didn't know this improv was a pervert going to do these things. So, and then also I move to introduce RS 32021C1.
Committee, we have a motion to introduce RS 32021C1. Is there discussion on that motion? Or any further questions for Mr. Gonzatti? Representative Achilles.
Just a comment on the motion, Mr.
Certainly.
I think on first read here, this appears to be narrowly defined, but we are, as others have acknowledged, adding 5 pages of new code and 3 pages of legal background. Do we really need to do that, or is there a more efficient way, number one? Number two, we're delving into a bunch of First Amendment issues here, and I just want to make sure we approach this very carefully. And 3, the affirmative defense section, it does feel insufficient, and I think maybe we can strengthen that to provide some more appropriate protections, but look forward to having that discussion when this comes back. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Committee, the motion is to introduce RS 32021C1. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. It will be done. The committee will now consider.
That's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
Oh, yeah. All right. Great. Well, that was so good to watch Mr. Gonzatti present that Bill 230. It did get printed, so it will have a full hearing, and we'll pay attention to that. I want to bring in Brian Allman here. Allman, how you doing, brother? We are now watching. We want to dip in. We didn't expect this to happen today, but this is how it goes. The food tax credit bill that just got out of the committee yesterday has made its way to the House floor. They suspended some rules so that they could vote on it and debate on it now. This is House Bill 231, and so far, Mr. John Gannon looks like he's finishing up his debate. We'll see if somebody else jumps up here. Allman.
Representative Hostetler is about to debate here. I've got it on the other screen here.
All right, very good. So yeah, let's listen a little bit to Representative Hostetler.
Face to our constituents in light of what we could do for them. All tax relief is great. I love it, but we can do it better. Interesting talking points from our two sponsors, the good gentleman from 22 and the good lady from 2. But I don't think we should be penalizing all of our citizens to capture a little bit of possible tax money from a select smaller few. By the way, it's pretty speculative, those numbers. And if it's about shifting taxes, we can use that debate for everything. Let's just create a bunch of new taxes and all of our property tax will go down. I mean, that doesn't really fly, that narrative. But hey, it is almost tax time. Everybody ready to do taxes? Everyone loves doing taxes, right? No? How about bookkeeping? Anybody like doing bookkeeping or paying for bookkeeping? I don't. Come tax time under this bill for a family of 4 to get an extra $380 on top of the normal rebate. A citizen will now have to keep receipts throughout the year for thousands of dollars of groceries bought throughout that year, scan them and turn them in. By the way, they need to now itemize those receipts according to the SNAP definition for their tax returns. So better bone up on your SNAP definitions and food preparation knowledge. Apparently this bill's also, retroactive to the first of the year. If that's the case, I hope everybody's been saving their receipts. They will also now risk a penalty should there be a mistake in taxes. a penalty if you make a mistake. Maybe you don't understand those definitions of hot food, cold food, prepared food, SNAP, whatever. But in fear of audit, now you're keeping massive amounts of receipts for years. For years. We are talking about, as many has heard, bookkeeping for breadcrumbs. To me, it's a little insulting to our citizens. The bill references federal definitions for edible food items. Meanwhile, once again, you need to know the difference between taxable, non-taxable Idahoans. Idahoans will still end up paying an unnecessary 6% every time they purchase food at the checkout. Most of our citizens don't even want to pay that 6%, most of them. This is confusing and it's an arduous process. 46 other states do not pay tax on groceries, 46. This bill makes things much more complicated, and I could go into a lot more details, but really we should be doing the better thing. And I'll ask for a no on this bill for our citizens. Thank you.
Motion. Gentleman from 11.
Interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to apologize to the body and to the clerk for asking to have that bill read, but 20 minutes before we voted to, or we were asked to vote to suspend the rules, we find out that the bill numbers changed from 61, that the good gentleman from, is it 22? The good gentleman from 22 sent us an email about last night about suspending the rules. We didn't have a chance to read this bill or to compare it to the old text before we got it. That's wrong. And besides, what's the hurry? What's the hurry? We're in the middle of the session. We have time to discuss it and to read, to study it. Nobody knew that this bill was going to be on the floor today. Unless you read your email last night, you had no idea. Our budget has increased 55% in 5 years. And we can handle a 4% reduction for real tax relief for Idahoans who want it. 87% of Idahoans want this tax repealed. As my good friend from over here said, this is bookkeeping for breadcrumbs. You got to keep all these receipts and itemize it. I mean, he gave a very good argument about that. If we repealed sales tax completely, it would be the largest tax cut in history of Idaho, with about a $406 million cut in taxes. So, Mr. Speaker, I move to send this bill to general orders to amend it for a full repeal of the grocery tax. Thank you.
Friday fireworks.
Thank you. Got a first and a second. Gentleman from 11.
Was there a second?
Gentleman from 11, that would be Representative Cheney.
Send House Bill 221 to the amending order. So debate on the motion. Gentleman from 11. Gentleman 13.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a point of order. I understand the motion. I don't sit on the tax committee, so I don't know, would that be in the appropriate chapter if that bill is moved up there? Could they radiator cap it and actually put it, or is that in a different chapter in tax code?
The gentleman looking at this, you can do whatever you want with a bill on general law.
So this would be a radiator cap attempted to do. Okay, thank you.
It would be a hostile motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, good gentleman. For debate on the motion, gentleman from 11.
Radiator cap,
Thank you, Mr.
the
Speaker, to debate
slang term for removing everything in a bill and just leaving the radiator cap behind.
If you take your car into the shop and you come back and the only thing left is the radiator cap.
Oh, for the motion.
Right.
My apologies. No.
So further debate on the motion to send the bill to general orders. Gentleman 22.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would encourage your red light on this. I would consider this a hostile motion. I just want to give people back money. You want to give back more money, then bring a different bill, but don't take my bill to do your bidding. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Further debate on the motion. Would the gentleman from 11 care to close his motion? What?
Mr. Speaker,
Didn't open. Excuse me, good gentleman. I apologize. When I asked you, you didn't open. Debate is closed.
thank
The
you.
question is, shall 231 be placed on the general order?
All right, so this is a vote here to see whether or not this bill should go towards the amending orders, where they can open it up and rewrite it and do different things to it. I imagine this thing is going to fail.
Fail 4 to whatever, 65.
Has every member voted?
6.
Does any member wish to change their vote?
No, Representative Boyle.
Clerk will lock machine, record the roll.
Surprise there.
6 ayes, 61 nays, 3 absent, and excused. Majority having voted against the motion. The motion to send the bill to general orders has failed, and we will continue our debate on House Bill 231. Is there further debate on the bill? Lady from 34.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
Lady has the floor.
So I sit on the relevant committee that this bill came through, and I think the body needs to have clarification as to why the bill number is different than the one that you saw in your email last night. And that's because the bill sponsor came before the committee in the hearing and made a clarification that involved an article, as in an a the. That's it. That's the change in the bill. There is no change in the overall content or the objective of the bill. I personally
We covered
object
that
to the
yesterday,
notion
Alman. I thought
or
it had
the
something to do with food
implication that the bill
processors
sponsor-
and
Yeah, Representative Monk's changed one word to make sure that some definition referred only to food retailers, not to food processors.
right.
It is the same bill with a technical correction. I'm also going to note for the body that this debate today is reflective of two different approaches to tax policy. And I, for one, would like non-Idahoans to continue paying for the joy that they get to have when they come to our state. We are providing tax relief for Idahoans. This bill does that. But we're also ensuring that those who want to come to our state and spend time in this state, they give a little something back too. With that, I encourage your green light.
For debate on motion, you late 32.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Rule 55, I would ask the previous question.
Good gentleman 28. Second motion. What the good lady is asking for, if I am correct, is to suspend debate and call the question. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Good clerk?
Interesting.
No more debate, just vote and move on.
You don't usually hear this in the House.
No. It was seconded by either Cheatham or Gardner and brought, I don't know, who was the one that made the motion?
I couldn't tell.
32, perhaps? Nicholson?
Okay, this is a non-debatable motion. It takes 2/3 of the majority of the members present to suspend debate. Do you understand what I am talking about?
This does happen all the time in
Debate, and then we will, if this passes, we
in
will
meetings
go
like
forward on the bill.
Republican committee meetings, but you don't usually see it on the House floor.
Yeah.
That.
All right, folks. So they are going to, they need 2/3 here to
Be able
stop
to put the
debate
House
on
at
this.
ease prior to this vote, or are we too far down that road?
Gentlemen, I think we're probably too far down that road. Clerk will mock machine, and members will cast their vote.
All right, folks. So this is a 2/3 vote. That's about 47 people here need to say they agree with suspending debate and just going to the vote. I think this will be closer.
Yeah, it's not going to pass.
Closer to the no side than it will to the aye side, but you never know. It's close. Everybody checking what everybody else is doing.
Has every member voted?
Yeah, so this is not going to pass.
Does any members change their vote? Clerk will lock machine and record the roll. 35 ayes, 32 nays, 3 absent and excused. Less than 2/3 of the body present voting in favor of the motion. The debate on the motion has failed, and the debate on House Bill 231 will continue. It's a further debate on the motion.
I guess they don't want to go to lunch and go home today.
Good gentlemen, 25.
No grocery shopping.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to debate against this bill.
Gentlemen now have the floor to debate.
Thank you. Since 2017, Idahoans have paid over $2 billion in grocery taxes. In the last 5 years, the state has collected over $1.6 billion in grocery taxes. And of that, roughly 800 million has been paid back in credits. If this was a real relief, that money would all that money would be going back to the citizens. I'd also like to talk about the aspect of a rebate as it is. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, going into Verizon, I could go and get a cell phone rebate. Paid full price for the product, but I was given a melon rebate. I never sent those rebates in. And I think that's the premise of a rebate, is to ensure that Idahoans are not getting their money back. That is the whole premise for rebates. It's because it's a lot of work. You even go look at the accounting aspect of it. A lot of people aren't in that realm making $107,000 a year, as was quoted earlier. And so they end up going to one of these tax agency people to do their taxes, to file their taxes for them. When they go and they file their taxes, they're paying over $100 plus just to have their taxes filed. And with that, what kind of burden is that going to place as far as itemizing your groceries, your receipts for all the groceries you purchased? How is that going to be for that person that's helping you file your taxes? It's going to extend that cost to that individual. I think as far as the rebate goes, that it's one of those things that we just do not need. We need real reform. People are struggling. They're not struggling 12 months later after they're filing their taxes. They're struggling when they go to that register and they pay for their groceries. To kind of put it in context, a family of four spending $300 at the grocery store. They're paying nearly 6% sales tax on those groceries. That 6% is almost $18. That $18 is a meal for that family. It's taking away from the people that really need that money. And I think that the argument that the grocery stores are going to raise their prices to make up that difference is a moot point. I think the grocery stores would rather see the people spend that $18 in their store to increase their profit margins in that way. And with that, I hope that you vote against this bill. Thank you.
For debate on the motion, the gentleman from Levin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. So, fellow members of the House, Idaho has one of the highest grocery taxes in the country, 6%, only second to Mississippi, 7%. We're one of just 4 states that still fully tax groceries: Mississippi, Idaho, South Dakota, and Hawaii. Nearly every other state has figured out that taxing food, something everyone needs to survive, is bad policy. Idaho's grocery tax is pushing shoppers across state lines to places like Oregon, where there's no grocery tax at all. That means Idaho businesses are losing customers to states with better tax policies. Repealing the grocery tax isn't just about relief at the checkout. It's about keeping consumer spending here in Idaho. The claim that grocery stores will raise prices by 6% if we repeal the tax is a red herring.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe
Gentleman
that.
for 20.
My objection is I don't believe that we're allowed to read our statements.
Good gentleman, if you're reading, please stop and continue.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. So I fully repeal a tax that provides meaningful relief for Idaho. I have serious reservations about the mechanism of this tax relief as provided for in this bill. I guess I would pose the question, is the amount of effort needed to itemize and scan receipts worth the, to claim that extra 95?
Please don't read, just look at us and present like the rule states. Thank you, good gentleman.
So the effort needed to claim that extra $95 tax credit is putting people, I think, in a serious position of, is the time spent worth the cost of claiming that extra $95 of credit? Let's talk about receipts for a second. to keep them orderly, neat, not crumpled, not spoiled, to put them in a safe that, or a place that's kept safe, to at the end of the tax year, pull them all out and hope that the ink is not faded off of the receipts, and then to have to scan potentially hundreds of receipts to a PDF document. That seems like a lot of work, and I wonder how many people are actually going to take and do all this for an extra $95 credit per person. And then for the people that don't have access to a scanner at home or maybe at their place of work, this is going to force them to go out to a place of business that does document scanning and printing, thereby incurring further costs to scan these, to scan the receipts to a PDF document. So again, is this bill helping or is it hindering? And I would argue that I believe it's a prohibition of actually helping people with meaningful tax relief. And again, going back to what our constituents have asked, I speak for myself. I have received literally hundreds of emails from constituents across the state since session started on January 6th. And everybody is demanding grocery tax repeal, full repeal. And to that end, I feel like, well, yes, this is providing some tax credit. What the people are really asking for is grocery tax repeal. Thank you.
Further debate on the motion? The lady from 4.
Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
The lady has the floor.
I just want to provide a different perspective. We're hearing about how it's going to cost our taxpayers monies to do this. I volunteered for 2 years with AARP doing taxes for low-income people, and probably half of them were senior citizens that all they did was come in and file taxes to get their tax credit. So there are opportunities out there that people can file their taxes for free.
Further debate on the motion? Hearing none, General 22, care to close. Excuse me, good lady from 9.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to debate against this for the citizens of District 9 and
Lady
the
has the
other,
floor.
thank you, the other districts who border the many states that surround us that either don't have a grocery tax whatsoever, or it's much less than what we have. We have seen in these border communities, for example, one of the biggest towns in my district cannot even have a grocery store. They couldn't keep one, and they can't get anyone to come in because everyone goes over to Ontario. And of course, do they file with the tax commission that they have bought groceries over there? Very, very few do. I don't go to Ontario for any reason. It's not safe for one thing. And I don't shop at Walmart. So in Lewiston, the Walmart moved over to Clarkston for the same reason. In Moscow, the Walmart moved over across the border into Washington for the same reason. We are running out our businesses that are in these border communities. If we had stores that sold groceries with no tax in those communities, people wouldn't just be there buying the groceries that don't have a tax. They would be there buying the other things, the paper products and all the others that we could tax with this. So my district for over 30 years have had representatives and senators who have begged for the elimination of grocery tax. I understand that the rest of you want to use that for some other purpose, but I just had to stand to defend my district. Thank you.
Thank you, good ladies. Further debate on the motion? 31.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate in favor.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I too received a lot of emails to repeal the grocery tax credit. In fact, one of those emails was from myself. And
good, gentlemen. It's a food credit, but continue. That's pretty good.
Thank you. And so I wouldn't put a lot of credit in all those emails that you got. And And I would think that we would look at those emails from our district, but make sure they're really legit. When I go to national conventions, I get a lot of questions about JFAC, how we appropriate money. I get questions about our grocery tax. And when they ask me, they say, well, how in the world does Idaho have a grocery tax? And I say, well, did you know we had a credit? And the answer is always no. And when my constituents ask me about it, I ask them, did you know we have a credit? And we're not doing a very good job in Idaho letting our constituents know they have a credit and how to figure that credit, how to divide the tax rate by that credit. The old credit was around $8,000 a year of tax-free groceries. With the new credit, it's up around $10,000 for a family of 4. And not everything you buy at the grocery store is groceries. Your toothpaste, your toilet paper, stuff like that. You're going to continue to buy that and pay the 6%. So, Mr. Speaker, Idaho has a unique opportunity to take advantage of people that come into our state, not take advantage, that's not properly said, but to get tax dollars from people that come into our state, buy our groceries. Those people go to my sand dunes on the St. Anthony and they get run over by an ATV. And we have to go take care of those people. They drive on our roads. We have to maintain those roads. In fact, the sales tax goes for water pollution, the circuit breaker, property tax relief. Sales tax goes for a lot of things. And it's okay with me that the out-of-staters pay their fair share. So I'll be voting for this bill, Mr. Speaker.
Further debate on the motion? Jump 31.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I might take just a moment to debate the bill.
Someone has the floor to debate the bill.
So some of my kids have lived out of state for their postgraduate work and lived in states where there wasn't a sales tax on food items, but other taxes were higher. There's just no question about it. They raised taxes in other ways to compensate. I have received word in the last few days of a flyer that came to my mailbox at home, and my neighbors received the same flyers. And so people have been calling me. I'll bet I've had, well, I can't tell you how many phone calls I've had, but I've had dozens of phone calls in the last few days about this very issue. And as I responded to those phone calls and explained to them how our current system works and how this proposed legislation will increase that tax credit, many of them have said, I had no idea. I had no idea. And their attitudes change 180 degrees. They're now in favor of this proposal that we're discussing today. And in response to the good gentleman from 17, I've done my part. 6 kids, 25 grandkids, all living in Idaho. Thank heavens. This is a good bill and it should pass.
You have done your part. Thank you, good gentleman. Further debate on the motion. The lady from 8.
To debate the bill.
Lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just really quickly, there are communities in our state that actually charge 7% on groceries. I do believe the only fair solution is to stop taxing food at the point of sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Further debate on the motion. Gentleman 28.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate in favor of the bill.
Brian, let's bring Brian Allman
when
in
you
here.
take the numbers that the good gentleman next to
Brian,
me talked about.
fascinating, fascinating debate from Representative Rod Furness talking about how he received an email himself from, telling him to vote against or vote to repeal grocery tax. This is something that I think came to light over the last couple of hours, maybe, or days, or last night or so, on X with a couple of senators. Am I?
Yeah, so this has been
speed?
this has been kind of bubbling for the last few days. Senator Brian Lenny has been talking about it. He's been on a bit of a crusade against the group that's been sending these out, Young Americans for Liberty / American Action Fund. I got an email from them yesterday morning because I'm apparently on the list, saying click here to sign a petition and send a message to your lawmaker calling to repeal grocery tax. And in doing so, it presumably, I haven't tried it myself, but it presumably then sends an email to, I I should go through the process to see how it actually works, because it might ask you your zip code or something. Somehow it figures out who your representatives are and it sends to them. However, Senator Lenny started talking yesterday about how some of these were fake, that apparently some people were receiving emails that constituents never actually sent. And in the case, Representative Furness has just explained that he received an email from himself calling to repeal the grocery tax. And apparently he shared that with other legislators, which is what got Senator Lenny on this. And then Senator Camille Blaylock from Caldwell has replied with a couple of screenshots showing that she's also receiving emails from people who claim that they never actually sent them. So I don't know what's going on.
This is a screenshot from her, looks like an iPhone, where it's a screenshot of an email, and it looks like she's texting her friend, because the way that she comments, she's like, "Hey girlfriend, did you send me this email?" And it's an email asking to support grocery tax repeal, and she responds, "No, I absolutely did not send that."
Senator Blaylock posted another one, or she shared it with Senator Lenny, and he posted it, where she got an email from Sebastian Griffin, who is a Nampa City Council member, who is, one, not in her district, and two, claims he did not send it. So yeah, this is a curious turn of events. And it's
it
interesting
is,
that Representative Furness
and
brought it up on the floor.
Yeah, it is. And full disclosure, folks, I mean, Citizens Alliance of Idaho, we've put out a call to have people contact. We do it on the show all the time. Contact your legislature, send an email. We've also had the ability where you could go to our website, type in your message, and have it sent to your legislature. But this is bizarre. I've never known to find someone's information and allegedly fake send stuff out like this. This is a huge deal. I mean, if this is what's really going on, and it's more widespread than just a couple. I mean, the Furness standing up and saying he got one from himself. I mean, that is huge, and that's on record now in the House debate here in the Journal. I mean, I think this is a big deal, because I mean, there could be many ramifications here on this information, where this is going, and so I'm not one to do like these hard-nosed deep dive journalism things on things that don't have, that are outside kind of the scope of what we do here. But this is a big deal. I mean, and it goes to honesty, it goes to integrity, and it goes to drumming up. If they're astroturfing support, and I'm not saying there is. I mean, grocery tax, obviously, we've talked about it on the show. You could go back and forth on the benefits, the getting rid of it and all that. I mean, I'm for just getting rid of the whole thing altogether, right? But you hear all these arguments all around for years now, and so at this point, I mean, I don't know what to believe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go so far as to say that this is definitely some malfeasance here. Who knows? Who knows what's going on?
You can allege.
There's two issues there. One, it appears that there might be some malfeasance, forging names, sending things from people who didn't actually send them, and two, getting sloppy about it. If you're going to do that, why are you sending sending emails to a legislator from using his name? It's very silly.
I don't know.
It's keeping things interesting here in the legislative session. This whole debate's been a bit of a circus. They pulled House Bill 231 off the second reading calendar using a unanimous consent request, and then ended up having to vote on it, which required a 2/3 vote. And then, typically when the clerk starts reading the bill, as is required in law, it says the bill has to be read on the floor 3 times. And so she starts reading the bill, but typically the sponsor stands up and asks for unanimous consent to suspend further reading, because who's got time to listen to the full text of bills, some of which are dozens of pages long? And they're supposed to do their homework and read them before they come to the floor. However, in this case, several representatives objected, which meant the clerk had to read the whole bill. So that's the second crazy, unusual.
Well, right, Almond, real quick, right now, let's go back to the House. Representative Scott has risen again. I think this is her second debate on this bill at the moment. So she's
a co-sponsor, so I believe this is closing.
The out-of-staters are spending.
The other number I used was $15,600 as an average for a family of 4, what they spend on groceries. That came straight from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And then the last number was the 35,000 illegals in the state of Idaho. That came from the University of Idaho's 2024 report. So that's all I just wanted to share, and I ask for your green light.
Thank you, good lady. Debate is closed. Question is, shall House Bill 231 pass the House?
Phew.
And again, folks, this would increase the food tax credit to $155 per person when you claim it on your taxes. And this is a refundable tax credit, correct, Alman?
Yes, this is refundable. So the current tax credit is refundable as well. So you can actually get back more than you pay in taxes.
Right.
Thompson. Does any members change their vote? Excuse me. Clerk will lock the machine, record the roll. 61 ayes, 6 nay, 3 absent, and excused. Majority.
Well, there it is. It's headed to the Senate for some more debate. So this debate isn't over when it comes to the. I mean, this is grocery tax credit increase.
Right.
We're not talking about the actual grocery tax. If you want to, if we have a bill that's out there, I guess we'll see if it makes it out there. I haven't seen one yet, and that's not to say that there isn't one out there that's sitting in some chairman's drawer, but I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. If a sponsor wants to release it, they can. I imagine there is one out there.
There is one out there, I'm sure, but obviously this is a contentious issue, and there's all the stuff going on. But, the grocery tax credit, it was created when the sales tax was created, and it was like $5 or $10 for years until I think like around 2000. And then they've started increasing it tremendously. They just increased it from $100 to $220 about 3 years ago. And so this is just the latest increase.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that's it. We had a bunch of other stuff we were going to cover today, but obviously this bill took precedent, and so we watched that debate. So that's fine. Yeah, that's great. But we do want to leave you folks as we end the program here. We do want to leave you on a really nice special note. So, Brian, I don't know if you saw this in the House State Affairs Committee today, but we mentioned yesterday that the pages, the young folks that are in the committees and in the Senate and the House that are helping, they help where they're needed. They're usually high school students with aspirations of getting into politics or something similar, and they rotate on a 6-week schedule. So the group of pages that were up for 6 weeks have left, and there was a very special, I guess, goodbye to one of the pages in the House State Affairs Committee, everybody's favorite committee. And so we want to leave you with that. So I just wanted to set that up. But Brian, where can people follow you, and what are we catching for you for Friday?
GemStateChronicle.com, as always, at GemStateBrian on X, and follow Citizens Alliance on X. I will have my weekly article out. We're going to be looking at the ramifications of House Joint Resolution 1, the constitutional amendment to ensure that parents are always the primary responsible party for their children's education.
Yeah, amen to that. All right, Alman, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. And folks, please enjoy this fantastic send off to one of the pages in the House State Affairs Committee. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Before we go, however, we want to honor our page. Ella, would you come forward? Ella, you have been an absolute godsend to this committee this session. We thank you for all your work. You have not only done your work diligently, but you've done it every day with a smile. And I can speak for behalf of the committee that we just want to thank you for all that you've done. And we have a little present. I'm going to turn it over to Liesa because she has some stuff that she would like to present to you on behalf of the committee, as well as she'd like to make some comments about working with you this session.
Ella, when you came to me, we had no idea what we were getting into. We heard about it. We were warned about it. We were drinking from a fire hose, you and me, for many weeks. And you stood by me and you trusted me. I have to say you are a woman of character. You are bold, you are strong, you are courageous. As the firstborn of many siblings, 8 or 9, there is a special blessing on the firstborn. And I just want to say that your character is impeccable. I have loved working next to you. This is not goodbye. This is to next time. What I can say is that as women of faith, I want you to leave with this. In Proverbs 3, it says, trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. And in all your ways, Ella, acknowledge him and he will direct your path. As a criminal defense attorney that you will be, my hope is to be able to come to you one day if I have to. I trust you. You don't gossip. You are at work on time every day. You smiled through the tears. And when we just thought we had the agenda done and we fist bumped, we were thrown a lot. And you handled it with grace and dignity. I would want no other person by my side for the first 6 weeks. We love you. And on behalf of House State Affairs, myself, Chairman, Susan, and this committee, we thank you and we send you off. Job well done.
Ella, great job. I agree and echo what she said. I just pray that none of us ever have to use her services as a criminal defense attorney. So anyways, here's a little gift on behalf of the committee. You can open it now if you want to, or you can open it later, whatever you prefer. You're welcome.
We love you.
Okay.
You guys are truly the best committee I could have got for. Like the environment and atmosphere in here is wonderful. You guys are all so lovely to work with and work for. I couldn't have chosen a better committee or got assigned because I didn't really choose it. But I really enjoyed being here with you guys, and I hope to be sitting up here one day. So thank you guys.
Awesome. We love it. With that, committee will stand adjourned.
This bill, I think, puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.